Upon you, I start with the greeting of peace, as some people might say, shalom. Today we have a very esteemed guest speaker here today. His name is Rabbi Weiss. Yeah, I can't say your name.
Israel David Weiss.
What do you say? Israel David Weiss. Okay, so he's actually Rabbi Weiss is a spokesperson for Literary Carta International. It's Jews United Against Zionism, and basically he's going to be going into the concept of what Zionism is and Judaism is, and kind of making the clarification there. Because all this week throughout the wall, if you guys been at the wall, or if you guys been talking to people who have been at the wall, like they approach you and then they say, what's this about? Is this the Jews versus Muslim thing? What's going on here? And so there's a huge misconception. There's a huge misconception about what the Israel apartheid is about, and what what the backing is, or like who actually backs the apartheid. So Rabbi Weiss is going to be going into detail about Judaism versus Zionism and connecting it to the illegal occupation of Palestine that Israel has on the West Bank and Gaza. So here's Rabbi Weiss.
I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, and that I should be worthy of conveying this truth to this special august gathering, people who, with God's help, will be future leaders. And in so doing, we hope that we should be able to sanctify the name of the Almighty and to bring peace to this world. God's name is peace. Shalom, salam. So I hope it will be a step, an opening, some light, shed light on an issue that should be able to, as I say, bring peace to the world and sanctify God's name. Amen. I want to thank the university for allowing us to come, Cal Power Pomona and the Muslim student body for arranging it and basically standing up and not being intimidated in this such a crucial issue about the people who are suffering in Palestine and Gaza, and for inviting me to speak. Thank you very much. And Giovanni,
he went out.
Went out. Okay. Thank you. And all of you for giving of your precious time. I know it's so hard, but I hope you'll find that it was worth the time. Again, this is a very large subject. It's a very complicated issue, and to speak about the whole issue in a short time is really not possible, but what we're attempting to do is just to shed light on the issue, and with God's help, it will give you the opportunity to study further into this issue, and be able to discern and come to the truth about what this is all about. There's probably mainly Muslim students here. There's Jewish people here, maybe in the audience. Christians. Yeah, so maybe I should just, for the Jewish students, it's always, they come usually with an idea that, and a preset concept that people who oppose Zionism is somehow opposing the Jewish people, are not loyal to Judaism, and it has been many, many years. Usually they've grown, you're college students, that you usually, most probably your whole life, you've been brought up with this belief that Judaism and Zionism is one and the same, or they complement each other, and people who are opposing it is because it's because it's predicated in anti-Semitism and things like that, and the ones who oppose it from the Jewish people are because they're self-hating Jews. They're embarrassed with their Judaism, or many other reasons that they've been given. And really, that Zionism is something that we have to support and give our lives for. And in truth, if you would think about it for a minute, somebody who's living in the mainstream, maybe you would call it what the world calls mainstream. We have a mainstream, thank God, of religious Jews and Jewish communities who are not like this, but around the United States, in many of the communities, if you would be anti-Zionist, then your life becomes very uncomfortable. And so therefore, when you're going to hear something, and you have to think in your own mind, come to your own logical, truthful conclusion, a person has a tendency to sway and to think in a manner and to try to answer for a way that would be more convenient and more comfortable, that you'll actually be comfortable. If you have to all of a sudden change your whole view from something that you've been fighting for all your life or practicing all your life, and all of a sudden you have to change your whole view, then you feel very foolish. You feel that you wasted your life. You feel and you also feel that you'll be uncomfortable. And you know you could be ostracized from your community, and that really influences a person's thinking. And anybody who says it doesn't influence their thinking is simply lying to themselves. So that's why we urge the Jewish people to really use a concerted effort to try to step out of the way that you've been taught till now, search for the truth. We believe, and that of course our whole purpose of life is to serve the Almighty. The whole purpose of Judaism is to submit ourselves, to be subservient to the Almighty, even though it makes life very hard and we go through a lot of hardships and we sacrifice. Obviously, you sacrifice a lot to practice your religion, and so when it comes to the issue of Zionism, it should be the same. If you're really looking at Judaism seriously, then you should be ready and look at where you've sacrificed other issues, then you should be ready to sacrifice for the real truth, because that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's what your Judaism is supposed to be entailing, that it means to sacrifice to be able to serve God. And take it a step further, the Jewish people have been for 2,000 years in exile. Jewish people, and way before them, from the time of Egypt and so forth, and when Abraham gave his life, was ready to give his life, was thrown into an oven to be burnt. And we can go on throughout history, and the Crusades, and the Spanish Inquisition, and Hitler, and so forth. You can go through. Jews gave their lives in order to be able to remain a Jew. And here we would like to, we hope, and we pray to God, the end of time, the time when right before we hope and the revelation of the Almighty, when in His great compassion, that He will reveal His glory throughout the world, all humanity will serve Him. And there always, we believe, the Satan tries to throw some obstacles in the way by every day and age. And now it's right, we believe, we hope, the end of this exilic period, and the Satan is throwing. Satan is throwing another obstacle, as it has done throughout. There was the times of a false Messiah, the Shabbat Tzvi, his name should be obliterated. There was other things in Jewish history that was always to take Jews away from their following the Almighty. And we believe it before the end of time, God, through many rabbis, spoke about this, the greatest obstacle possible, this concept of Zionism that is trying to transform the thinking of a Jew, of what it means to be Jewish. So we're urging people to look. You're looking for the truth. Don't, at the end of the road, at the end of the long highway that you've been traveling on, there's a little turn off, and you can make that turn, and then you've lost it. If you go off the road you've gone, you missed it. You missed the opportunity. Just keep on plodding on, go on the right path, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it makes your life a struggle, God forbid, even if you have to change what you've been thinking till now, and you have to swallow your pride to do such a thing. Here, be open to hear the truth with God's help. That's all. And every human being, in our prayers we say, we pray to the Almighty every day. Show us your way, teach us your way. And that is, everybody has to constantly pray, because you never know when the Satan, it says further in the Psalms, King David wrote that blessed or Ashrei would be lauded is the person who's constantly fearful, because a person could be led astray by the Satan in his last years. and it brings a high priest in the high priest when he was in his 80s went off the way, so a person is never certain in his ways if he's doing something right. So so we're urging everybody to have open views and to pray to God to show the right way. And now we're going to present, with God's help, this issue of Zionism versus Judaism, explain why it is versus Judaism. Just one second, sorry. It's not working. Sorry, just excuse me, sorry. I came from New York and I'm not used to the heat here. Way too much. Okay. Another issue, just again to make people realize, of course, one of the attacks against us is sometimes they say we're just really not Jews, God forbid, we're just dressing like Jews. Sometimes that's a ridiculous attacks. I mean, but that's really just above and beyond. But then there's people who attack us, of course, being self-hating Jews, and it's a fringe group. It's just the extremists and all that, to belittle to the Jewish people who are standing in the way of the legitimacy of Zionism. So there's always these constant vile and vicious attacks. So in order to just show that how false this is, we ask people, how come you would find around the world, and this is in every single country where there is a large Jewish community, starting from Quds in Jerusalem, you have the most concentrated religious areas there of Jewish communities that was existing, Mea She'arim, from way before the state. And the Jewish people over there are anti-Zionist as a whole. You go to New York, the second largest concentration of religious Jews. You'll come to Williamsburg, right across from Manhattan. You'll go and you'll see it's probably the most concentrated in one area of very religious Jews. And right across the bridge, if you go to Manhattan, just take the time to just go over the bridge and go through the streets over there. You make a right off the Williamsburg Bridge. You're going into the very large Jewish community. You will find there's not one Israeli flag. You'll stop any child on the street. They're all anti-Zionist. And these people, then you go to Montreal, Canada. It's a very religious area. It'd be very hard to find an Israeli flag. You go to Stamford Hills, that's in London, in England. That's the most religious Jewish area in England. Again, possibly there's an Israeli flag somewhere, but it's very not prevalent. It's very hard to find. The community as a whole is anti-Zionist. Why is that? And why is it, if to say that because they're just not, they're not religious enough, I mean, or they don't have enough compassion or some other issues like that, then we just like to mention that all throughout the United States, and there's throughout basically where there's Jewish communities, there's organizations that have been set up, and almost entirely it's started by these communities. There's visiting the sick in hospitals called Bikur Cholim, the Satmar Bikur Cholim. It's nationally known, it's internationally, they're famous because they help also Muslim people, whether it's kosher food, they go, older people, men and women go from hospital, there's buses, if you come to New York, you see buses going from different Jewish communities, constantly driving to hospitals, bringing food, they go from floor to floor in hospitals looking who needs kosher food, who needs assistance with anything. They have Hatzolah. Hatzolah is ambulatory, free ambulatory service. Everybody in the Jewish communities knows, and anybody can use it. You call a number, God forbid somebody, within a minute or two, there's thousands of Jewish people who are volunteers, and they run to a house in the middle, they're ready anytime, day or night, to go help people. And it's been expanded, but it was started in Williamsburg by this anti-Zionist Jewish community. I could go on and on and on. The education, the people in these communities, none of them send their children to public school. They all, because of their seriousness as far as their religion, they have separate boys and girls schools, private schooling, large families. An average was probably of 6, 7 children, and it costs a fortune. and they pay this money to poor people as a general rule, teachers, not professionals, almost because their life is given over more to people of the book, scholars and so forth. So, and yet everybody sends their children to private education. Everybody pays for kosher food, which is much more expensive, and on and on. So they give their lives to serve the Almighty, for their religion, to be true to the religion. And yet, they're the strongest anti-Zionists possible. Go to that community, there's not one Israeli flag, and every child will tell you they're anti-Zionist. And that goes for all these other Jewish communities. The more religious, the more they give up their lives for religion, the more anti-Zionist. So the question asks of itself, why is it like that? If Zionism is such an important issue to Judaism, if it's so crucial, and people should be giving their lives for it, and we've had over 60 years all the problems and all the strife, mistrust, and all that has developed, and really the bloodshed that has come since Zionism is around. The question then, why these people are standing in opposition? Why is it this divide? Why do people give their lives and yet they claim that this is so important? And here you find people who are, on the contrary, they're totally opposed to this. And let me give you an example. When somebody is going to make an investment with you, if somebody has $1 million or something, and somebody comes over to you and he says, "Hey, I heard you just inherited $1 million, or something, you just won $1 million, and I have an idea. I have somebody," and he introduces you to this person. And he says, "I have a perfect." He takes out a bunch of documents. You invest in this money, you're going to make a fortune. Proof positive. It's just 100%. There's no question. You're going to double your money. You're going to triple your money. So of course the person would say, it sounds terrific, but I'm not going to just give you $1 million. And so you investigate, you go to the business bureau, you check out who this person is, and if it turns out that the guy's name, he says, it turns out his name is Madoff, then you'd say, "Excuse me, stop right there." You make sure that he didn't take your money out of your pocket yet, and you'd run away, and you don't even want to just go as far as you possibly can go from this person. And the guy starts saying, "But I'm telling you, look at the documents. It's 1,000%. I mean, it's ridiculous, and so many people invested in it." And he said, "Listen, I have no time for this. I don't want to have time for this." And you stand for it. That has to do what it has to do with money. Here we're talking about the souls of people, giving your life for a cause, supporting a cause, which is a person, as a Jewish person, a religious person. We believe the soul of the person is the most important. The body goes along with it, basically. And here people are investing their souls, they're giving everything for a cause called Zionism. We are stating that Zionism is the works of Satan. We are stating that Zionism is not only not one and the same with Judaism, but is diametric opposite. It's totally illegitimate. It's totally evil in its essence. There's Judaism and there's Zionism. Judaism is a religion. It's subservience to the Almighty. It's been practiced for thousands of years. Zionism is a transformation from spirituality, from subservience to God, from religion, into a materialism, a nationalism, a goal to have a piece of land, a material goal that you should be able to be equated with other nations, looked upon with respect because you have a strong Olympic team, a strong army, a strong nation. In essence, you're taking God out of the equation. It's not God that is ruling. It is, they call it a democracy, this, that. It's totally turning its back on what it means a Jew till today. It's the diametric opposite, it's contradictory to Judaism. Again, Judaism was practiced, and the covenant that we made to this bond with God, to become Jewish on Mount Sinai, is something which is thousands of years old. Zionism was started a little over 100 years ago. The fathers of Zionism, as a general rule, detested the religion. would try to estrange, they were estranged, they tried to further themselves from religion as much as possible. And so in that, just knowing these facts, understanding who the ones who brought Zionism into its popularity, who the ones who created it, that alone should make one distance themselves from Zionism as much as possible. Understanding that the rabbinical authorities, the ones around the world, stood in the most vociferous, most strongest opposition to the state of Israel, to the concept of a state, to the concept, the ideology of Zionism. Why? All these rabbis, not from today, we have a book put out that's called The Rabbis Speak Out, from 130 years of religious Jewish opposition. Zionism is only around that old, a little over 100 years development, and the rabbis spoke out, and there was, of course, tens of thousands of rabbis, but we've compiled the greatest rabbis, and I'll give just mention a name, the Chafetz Chaim, a very famous rabbi, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Cohen of blessed memory. He wrote The Zionists. This was before the creation of the state. He passed away in 1933. But Zionism was brewing. The concept of Zionism, the ideology in Europe, was burning. They were trying. They had this movement before the state was already well over 50 years. It was around 50 years already. Was at the time by 1930. So one of the leaders of the generation, Rabbi Chafetz Chaim, said, the Zionists are dead limbs of our people, which causes the entire body to rot. The Brisker of Rabbi Soloveitchik, of blessed memory, from Brisk from Poland, passed away in 1959, and he eventually was in Palestine. His statements are also just as sharp. He wrote Maimonides, the Rambam Maimonides, in one of the book called Yalkut Divrei Torah, which is a gathering of his words, wrote, Maimonides writes that the Messiah will bring the Jewish people out from under the rule of the nations. Whoever believes there can be a redemption from the rule of the nations without the Messiah is lacking complete faith in the coming of the Messiah. In other words, it's a heretical movement, Zionism. There's many, many other statements of them. Just mentioning, so in all the Jewish communities, they ostracized and they banished the Zionist movement before the Second World War. Second World War, after Hitler, the Jewish communities were destroyed and everything. That's when Zionism was able to put their tentacles in the Jewish communities and able to get a footing. Of course, because also they were given the land, the rule of the land in Palestine in 1948, so they were able to, the Balfour Declaration and so forth, so they were able to give land to Jewish people, and people who had, the refugees didn't have where to go, they gave them land and a place to live. So that also, of course, caused people to follow that movement.